Hey everybody, so we have a really quick tutorial right now. We're going to be doing how you get curves from solids, from solid objects, that we kind of covered in the last tutorials. And specifically in this case, we're going to look at the command wireframe, which is essentially taking all of the ISO curves from an object and turning them into curves that you can manipulate later on, and then I'm going to show you how to make those specific curves into solid objects instead of just sort of these infinite non-existent curves. So first example, and these are some of the commands we're going to go over, which is DupEdge, DupBorder, ExtractWireframe, and pipe. Pipe we covered in a curve command, so in the curves tutorial, so I'm not really going to touch on that too much. But this is essentially what we're looking at, are these two boxes, these kind of wireframe boxes, except in this case you can see that they are actually three-dimensional and they are piped objects. So I apologize for the showmanship there, but it had to be done for educative purposes. So the first thing that we're going to look at here is DupEdge. So DupEdge stands for duplicate edge, and essentially all you do with this one is type DupEdge, hit OK, and then whatever edge from whatever object you want to duplicate, you can. And that's going to turn that edge into a curve, and a curve you can then manipulate however you need to, or do whatever you need to do with this curve. It's a very, very useful command. A sort of extenuation, I guess, of this command is called DupBorder, which gets a little more complicated, but it'll duplicate the border of a surface. So in this case right now, if I were to type DupBorder, it's not going to work, because this isn't a surface, this is a solid. And so what I'd have to do to this would be come over and explode it to create these surfaces. And you see, these are the ISO curves I was referring to earlier, these kind of things that denote an entire shape's sort of divisional properties, I guess. And so if I wanted to dupe this border, I would type DupBorder again, and I can click that, and the border of that surface will come out. One thing to note too is if you dupe the edge, these are going to be separate curves, so you can, if you for whatever reason didn't dupe the border, you can just join those and the border will be one solid curve. So the next thing I want to show you is, actually I'm going to make this a solid again. So the next thing I want to show you is making something a wireframe. This is a very, very useful command. It essentially makes 2D a thing using its curves. Just for fun, I'm going to make a slightly more complicated model here, because everything has just been squares and cylinders so far. So I'm going to Boolean these together with Boolean union. So right now you see it created all of these ISO curves, and it is one object, right? So if I were to explode it, I would have these kind of unique curves, or these unique surfaces. But for now, I'm just going to type in ExtractWireframe right here, hit enter. And what that's going to do is take every single ISO curve and turn it into a separate curve from your surfaces. And so all of these curves now you can manipulate. They are all going to be separate curves. Right now, if I was to pop into render, I do have curves turned on, but typically this wouldn't show curves in render, but I have it turned on. But if you wanted to make these an actual 3D object, you could take these curves, pipe them, and we'll just say 0.3 for now, just for convenience. And we covered pipe in another tutorial, so these are the sort of modifiers for that, but right now 0.3. And then it's going to remain, it's going to keep these curves highlighted. It's a good idea to hang on to the curves in case you want to repipe something or rework this shape specifically. I usually just move them, but now you can see we have a three-dimensional shape with surfaces and objects. One thing that is very, very important to note that you'll kind of learn along the way is managing your file size. And something important to file size management is that curved surfaces, especially things like pipes, are heavy, heavy file sizes. And that's just because these surfaces, it tries to calculate almost like an insane amount of separate single line surfaces or single poly surfaces that are all sort of mathematically combined to equal this rounded surface. And so that takes up a huge amount of space. So just kind of be careful when you do use curved surfaces, and the pipe command. It's not terrible, but it does kind of make a difference. So there is the wireframe tutorial.